Become what you think. The power of self-image. Introduction. Have you ever found yourself at life's crossroads, a profound yearning for something more stirring within? Perhaps you've gazed into the mirror, wishing a different visage stared back, a soul imbued with greater boldness, unwavering confidence, or a profound sense of peace. Many of us have known the gnawing sensation of being ensnared, trapped in the relentless cycle of familiar patterns. Despite our fervent desires for liberation, we often seek solace in external panaceas, a new career, a different city, a novel relationship, or even the rigors of a stricter diet. Yet, invariably, the fundamental undercurrent of dissatisfaction or limitation persists, a spectral shadow clinging to our every step. This enduring sentiment whispers a deeper verity, that the most profound transformations we crave may not reside in the alteration of our external circumstances, but in the metamorphosis of something far more intrinsic, something within ourselves. What if the very key to unlocking your loftiest potential, to inhabiting a life brimming with authentic fulfillment, lay not in the distant horizon, but within the intimate confines of your own mind? An ancient wisdom, echoed by the sagacious minds of history, articulates this truth with elegant simplicity. We become what we think about. This is no mere poetic flourish. It is a profound revelation concerning the very essence of the human experience. It posits that our thoughts are not ephemeral wisps of air, but potent forces that sculpt the contours of our reality. But how, precisely, does this alchemy occur? The answer lies in a concept that functions as the clandestine architect of our existence, our self-image. Our self-image is the internal tableau, the mental blueprint we hold of ourselves. It is the unconscious constellation of beliefs that define who we perceive ourselves to be, what we deem ourselves capable of, and what we believe we are worthy of receiving. This internal depiction does not merely influence our thoughts, it orchestrates them, guiding our actions, shaping our perceptions, and ultimately, determining the very texture of the life we experience. This potent concept gained significant momentum through the groundbreaking work of Dr. Maxwell Maltz, a pioneering plastic surgeon of the mid-20th century. Dr. Maltz observed a peculiar phenomenon. He could execute remarkably successful surgeries, enhancing a patient's physical appearance with astonishing efficacy, yet many of these individuals did not spontaneously blossom into greater happiness or confidence. They often remained timid, self-conscious, or discontented, still tethered by the same internal struggles. He began to grasp that while he could reshape the external form, the patient's self-image, their deeply ingrained inner picture of themselves, remained largely unaltered. If an individual perceived themselves as unattractive or unworthy, even a physically perfected visage would fail to dismantle that internalized conviction. Maltz discerned that this inner picture operated akin to an internal thermostat, setting an immutable ceiling on what we believe we can attain or experience. He noted that this self-image, much like a photograph, could be refined, and in doing so, could fundamentally revolutionize a person's life, influencing their physical vitality, their interpersonal connections, and their overall trajectory of success. This internal blueprint, our self-image, is the invisible engine that transmutes our beliefs into the tangible reality we inhabit. If you harbor a diminished self-image, you may unconsciously subscribe to the notion that you are insufficient, intellectually wanting, or incapable of achieving success. This conviction then impels you to behave in ways that inadvertently validate it. You might eschew opportunities for fear of faltering, retreat from social engagements due to perceived awkwardness, or relinquish your efforts prematurely when confronted with obstacles. These behaviors are not necessarily a true reflection of your inherent capabilities, but rather the outward manifestation of your internal self-perception. Consider it analogous to a film director who possesses a vivid conception for a motion picture. If the director envisions a somber, tragic narrative, that is precisely what the actors will portray, the sets will embody, and the audience will experience. Similarly, if your internal self-image is one of inherent limitation, your life will inevitably unfold within those perceived boundaries. This often finds its genesis in formative experiences, the cutting remarks of parental figures or educators, the labels bestowed upon us, or past setbacks that we have internalized as irrefutable evidence of our inadequacy. But here resides the most liberating truth of all. Your self-image is not an immutable, unalterable decree. It is a mental construct, and like any construct, it can be understood, painstakingly reshaped, and profoundly improved. You possess an inherent capacity to alter that internal depiction, to repaint the very canvas of your mind. This book, Become What You Think, The Power of Self-Image, is your indispensable companion on this transformative odyssey. We shall delve into the intricate workings of this potent concept of self-image, explore the myriad ways it has been forged throughout your life, and, most crucially, illuminate how you can consciously and consistently affect its transformation. By comprehending and actively engaging with your self-image, you can unleash profound personal evolution, shatter the shackles of limiting beliefs, and embark upon the realization of the success, happiness, and fulfillment you unequivocally deserve. Your self-image is the architect of your reality, and you hold the blueprint for its reconstruction, brick by conscious thought, into the masterpiece you were always destined to become. Chapter 1. Understanding Self-Image. 1. What is self-image? Imagine, if you will, a builder standing before a vast, empty plot of land. Before a single brick is laid, before any walls rise, there is a plan, a blueprint. This blueprint shows precisely what the edifice will become, its dimensions, its chambers, its resilience, and its intended function. It is the unseen architect that orchestrates every phase of construction. Your self-image is akin to that blueprint, but for the architecture of your life. It is the internal tableau you hold of yourself, not merely your outward form, but the very essence of who you believe yourself to be. It is the silent narrative that unfolds within your mind, dictating your perceived capabilities, your deserts, and the horizons of your potential. This inner blueprint is the clandestine designer of your lived experience. It does not merely color your thoughts, it actively molds them. It does not merely suggest your actions, it commands them. And in this dominion, it profoundly sculpts the life you construct. This concept of self-image lies at the very core of our collective exploration in Become What You Think. It is the fundamental tenet that our deeply ingrained internal representation is the paramount force shaping our existence. It is the very lens through which we perceive all things, and that vision, in turn, conjures the world we inhabit. Now, it is facile to conflate self-image with what is known as self-esteem. They resonate similarly, do they not? Yet, they are distinct, and grasping this divergence is paramount. Consider self-esteem as the measure of your affection for yourself, or the value you ascribe to your being. It is akin to declaring, "I deem myself a person of inherent goodness." It is a sentiment of intrinsic worth. Self-image, conversely, pertains to the identity you embrace and the actions you believe yourself capable of executing. It is the mental daguerreotype you possess of yourself. It is the response to the query, "What manner of person am I?" And more critically, "What feats lie within my grasp?" Allow me to offer an illustration. Envision an individual consistently lauded for their prodigious artistic talent. They may possess robust self-esteem. They feel inherently good and deserving. However, if their self-image is that of an individual prone to clumsiness and incapable of navigating arduous tasks, they might recoil from a demanding professional undertaking, even while feeling positively about themselves as a person. Their self-esteem may remain intact, but their self-image, their conviction in their capacity to surmount challenges, acts as a formidable impediment. They might muse, "I am a good person, but I am simply not equipped for this level of pressure." Conversely, one might harbor a diminished self-image, convinced of fundamental flaws or inherent inadequacy. This often precipitates low self-esteem. They might lament, "I am insufficient, and I dislike myself for it." Yet, the root malady here is not merely the aversion, it is the underlying conviction regarding their identity and their potential. The impoverished self-image serves as the bedrock upon which low self-esteem is frequently erected. This distinction is potent. It signifies that one can feel generally content with oneself as a human entity yet remain constrained by one's perceived limitations. Or, one might grapple with self-acceptance due to a profoundly negative core belief regarding one's abilities. The linchpin is that self-image represents the more foundational blueprint. It is the bedrock. Ponder the insights of Dr. Maxwell Maltz, a pioneer in this domain. He observed a remarkable phenomenon when working with individuals who had undergone reconstructive surgery. Prior to their procedures, many harbored a deeply entrenched, negative self-image. They perceived themselves as disfigured or unworthy. Even after their physical appearance was substantially ameliorated by surgery, their internal perception often remained unaltered. They continued to see the former self in the mirror or felt the blemish persisted in the mind's eye. However, as they began to assimilate their transformed appearance, their internal depiction of themselves commenced its subtle evolution. They started to perceive themselves as whole, as attractive, as capable. It was not solely the physical alteration, it was the metamorphosis of their self-image that truly revolutionized their lives. They began to conduct themselves differently, to feel more assured, and to engage with the world through novel avenues. Their internal blueprint had been recalibrated. This exemplifies that the shift in their psychological state transcended mere subjective improvement. It was about commencing to regard themselves through a different lens. The alteration in their self-perception impelled them to adopt revised thoughts and, consequently, modified behaviors. This is the pervasive dominion of self-image. It functions as a formidable filter. Every experience you encounter, every fragment of information you absorb, is sifted through this internal blueprint. If your self-image is that of a reticent individual, you will likely gravitate towards and emphasize elements that corroborate your timidity. You might interpret a neutral glance from a stranger as an indictment. You will experience trepidation preceding a social engagement, contemplating, "I shall falter for words. All eyes will be upon me." This engenders shy thoughts, sensations of unease and dread, and ultimately, shy deportment, perhaps avoiding eye contact or speaking sparingly. And what transpires? Your self-image as a shy person is fortified. The blueprint is reinforced. Conversely, if your self-image is that of an assured and competent individual, your perception of the world will be transformed. A novel challenge at work will not be perceived as a threat, it will be viewed as an avenue for self-validation. You will reflect, "I can surmount this. I have navigated complex situations before." You will experience a surge of enthusiasm and preparedness. Your actions will be decisive and proactive. This, in turn, will solidify your self-image as a capable entity. This is why the book's central premise holds such profound significance. Our deeply held self-image is the primary architect of our reality. It is not merely a passive visualization, it is an active force. It is the lens that shapes your cognitive processes, the compass that directs your emotional currents, and the engine that propels your actions. So, from whence does this potent blueprint originate? It is not an innate endowment. Our self-image is largely fashioned over time, much like a dwelling is erected brick by brick. From our nascent moments, we commence accumulating data about ourselves. The pronouncements of our parents, the demeanor of our educators, the feedback from companions, the triumphs and tribulations we endure, all these coalesce into the constituent elements of our internal blueprint. If we are incessantly informed that we are clumsy, or intellectually deficient, or destined for mediocrity, these messages can become deeply embedded within our self-image. They become integral to the blueprint, engendering limitations. We begin to internalize these labels as verities. Analogously, if we are met with commendation, encouragement, and support, these positive experiences contribute to the construction of a more robust, more affirmative self-image. Consider a young boy named Leo. From his tender years, his father was relentlessly critical. If Leo failed to meticulously arrange his room, his father would declare, "You are so indolent, you will never achieve anything significant." If Leo struggled with a mathematical quandary, his father might sigh and remark, "You are simply not inclined towards numerical pursuits." These persistent admonitions, even if not intended to inflict profound harm, began to sculpt Leo's self-image. He commenced to believe he was lazy and intellectually unremarkable. This became his internal blueprint. Years later, Leo is an adult. He holds a respectable position, yet he shies away from assuming new responsibilities. He is paralyzed by the fear of failure because, at his core, he believes himself incapable. He may experience fleeting moments of self-satisfaction, but when a challenging opportunity presents itself, his ingrained blueprint is activated. He thinks, "I am not adequate for this. I will likely bungle it." His self-esteem might be passable on favorable days, but his self-image, the fundamental conviction regarding his capabilities, is constricting him. He is, in essence, enacting the script penned by those early criticisms. The pivotal insight here is that the self-image is not immutable. It is not irrevocably fixed from childhood. While early experiences lay a substantial foundation, the blueprint is amenable to alteration. It can be updated, revised, and even entirely redrawn. This is the hopeful revelation at the heart of this volume. To truly apprehend the nature of self-image, we must perceive it as this dynamic, internal guide. It is the mental photograph that delineates our identity, our potential, and our deserts. It permeates every thought, every emotion, and every action. It is the invisible force that shapes the entirety of our life's narrative. The immediate practical implication of this comprehension is immense. If you recognize that your present reality is a mirror of your internal blueprint, you apprehend that you possess the agency to modify that blueprint. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are the architect of your own experience. This realization shifts the focus from altering external conditions to transforming your internal perception. It implies that the impediments you encounter are often not absolute external barriers, but rather perceived limitations rooted in your self-image. To address the analytical query directly, the metaphor of the internal blueprint serves to visually elucidate and clarify the subconscious character of self-image by presenting it as a preordained plan that governs construction. It posits that our actions are not capricious, but adhere to a predetermined design. The immediate practical ramification is that if the blueprint is flawed, the resultant structure of our life will likewise be flawed. But, more importantly, if we can access and revise the blueprint, we can fundamentally alter the structure we are erecting. It suggests that the power to transform our lives resides not in brute force or external manipulation, but in the meticulous, conscious revision of our inner design. This understanding empowers us by revealing that the source of our limitations is within our purview rather than being dictated by external forces beyond our influence. And to further solidify the distinction between self-image and self-esteem, consider Sarah. Sarah is a gifted musician. She is acutely aware of her proficiency on the piano. She receives accolades from her instructors and peers. She experiences a sense of accomplishment and contentment when her playing is exceptional. This indicates she possesses robust self-esteem pertaining to her musical aptitude. She appreciates her skill. However, Sarah also harbors a deeply ingrained self-image that she is not a leader by nature. She believes leaders are inherently charismatic, assertive, and perpetually in command. Sarah perceives herself as quiet, somewhat reserved, and someone who prefers to follow rather than direct. Consequently, when her music instructor suggests she lead a small, ensemble performance, even though her self-esteem concerning her musical prowess is elevated, her self-image as a non-leader takes precedence. She thinks, "I can execute the music, but I am utterly incapable of guiding these individuals. That role is for someone else." She declines the opportunity, not from doubt in her musical capacity, high self-esteem, but because her internal blueprint informs her that she is not the sort of person who leads a limiting self-image. Conversely, contemplate Mark. Mark has encountered numerous professional setbacks. He has been dismissed from several positions and frequently feels inadequate. His self-esteem is decidedly low. He holds little regard for himself because he believes himself to be a failure. Nevertheless, Mark possesses an unshakable self-image that he is a fundamentally good and benevolent individual. He believes that even though he falters professionally, his core essence is virtuous. Because of this strong, positive self-image as a good person, he perseveres. He does not entirely relinquish hope in himself. He believes, deep down, that a good person such as himself deserves to ultimately triumph, even if that triumph has not yet materialized. His self-image as a good person sustains a flicker of optimism, preventing his diminished self-esteem from utterly extinguishing him. This illustrates how a robust, affirmative self-image can serve as a bulwark even when self-esteem is low. This internal blueprint, this self-image, is not static. It is a living, breathing entity within us, perpetually reinforced by our daily experiences and interpretations. It is the silent force that whispers to us of our potential and our limitations. Now that we comprehend the nature of self-image, this potent, internal blueprint that sculpts our reality, the crucial subsequent step is to explore how this blueprint is forged and solidified, often beyond our conscious awareness. We must delve into the origins of our self-image to truly 2. How self-image affects behavior. Our self-image acts as an unseen compass, perpetually orienting us. It is the mental portrait we hold of ourselves, our perceived identity, our strengths, and our inherent worth. This internal depiction is not passive. It actively steers our course, shaping every decision, whether momentous or mundane. Imagine this: if you perceive yourself as competent, your compass naturally points toward opportunities where you can manifest that competence. You will gravitate towards challenges, voice your opinions with assurance, and embrace novel experiences, for your inner guidance whispers, you are capable. Conversely, if self-perception is shadowed by doubt, if you see yourself as timid, awkward, or insufficient, your compass will point in the opposite direction. It will steer you away from possibilities, sow seeds of apprehension, and leave you feeling ill at ease in your own skin. This internal navigation system wields such profound influence that it molds not only our thoughts, but our very actions, defining the boundaries of our comfort. We tend to remain within the confines of our self-image, often unaware of the invisible lines that restrict us. This underscores the critical importance of comprehending how our self-image dictates our behavior. It is not a mere abstract concept, but the very engine that propels our daily existence. A diminished self-image manifests in tangible ways. We may find ourselves hesitating to speak, even when possessing vital insights. We might avert eye contact, feeling undeserving of acknowledgement. We may recoil from new endeavors, from forging new connections, or from undertaking tasks that could foster growth. This reluctance often stems not from a lack of aptitude, but from the internal narrative that declares us ill-equipped. It is a quiet, insistent voice that murmurs, "You are destined to fail," or "They will not accept you," or "This is beyond your station." These sensations of timidity and an aversion to the unfamiliar are direct consequences of a self-image eroded by past experiences. Perhaps we endured disparaging remarks in our youth, or encountered repeated failures that we interpreted as irrefutable proof of our inadequacy. Such experiences can forge a flawed mental blueprint of ourselves, which then dictates our conduct. We become hesitant, prone to procrastination, and may even resort to self-deprecating humor, a coping mechanism that can paradoxically reinforce negative self-beliefs. This pervasive sense of inadequacy can compel us to shun situations where we might face scrutiny or rejection, a protective measure for our fragile internal construct. We might even acquiesce to less than we are capable of achieving, because our self-image denies us the belief that we merit more. Now, consider the inverse. What transpires when we nurture a positive self-image? The ensuing behavioral transformation is often striking and deeply gratifying. Instead of hesitation, we become agents of action. We proactively seek opportunities rather than passively awaiting them. A profound sense of confidence emerges, empowering us to articulate our thoughts and feelings with clarity and conviction. We recognize the inherent value of our ideas and are unafraid to share them. This does not imply infallibility or an absence of challenges, but our approach is fundamentally altered. Setbacks are not viewed as evidence of failure, but as invaluable learning experiences. We rebound with greater resilience, imbued with a renewed resolve to persevere. Picture an individual who possesses unwavering faith in their capabilities. When confronted with a formidable task, their initial thought is not, "I cannot do this." Rather, it might be, "This presents a challenge, but I am confident I can surmount it," or "I have navigated difficult situations before and I can do so again. This positive conviction fuels their actions. They engage the task with vigor, they problem solve with ingenuity, and they are more likely to arrive at a resolution. They welcome new experiences, perceiving them as avenues for growth and learning rather than potential pitfalls that might confirm their perceived weaknesses. Even their interpersonal interactions evolve. They approach others with an open heart and a steady gaze, radiating self-assurance, which, in turn, fosters comfort in those around them. This dynamic is frequently characterized as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Our self-image engenders a set of expectations, and our subsequent behavior serves to actualize those expectations. If you harbor a deep-seated conviction that you are inept at public speaking, you will likely experience trepidation before a presentation. This anxiety might manifest as a trembling voice, a fleeting mental void, or a tendency to rush through your remarks. Upon completion, you will likely feel a sense of relief, coupled with a reinforcement of your belief. You see, I knew I was a poor speaker. This experience then solidifies your negative self-image, rendering subsequent presentations even more daunting. The prophecy has indeed fulfilled itself. Conversely, if you hold a robust belief in your oratorical prowess, you may still feel a degree of nervousness, but your approach will differ. You will prepare assiduously, focus intently on your message, and likely deliver it with enhanced presence. Even if you falter momentarily, you will not perceive it as a catastrophe. You will dismiss it, secure in the knowledge of your overall capability. Your behavior, guided by your positive self-image, culminates in an outcome that reinforces that very belief. The cycle perpetuates, building upon itself. Thus, how does the specific content of our self-image translate directly into observable behavioral tendencies and choices? Let us consider a tangible illustration. Envision an individual whose self-image is profoundly anchored in the conviction, I am a failure. This is not a transient sentiment, but a foundational belief. Consequently, when presented with a novel job opportunity necessitating the acquisition of new skills, their behavior will likely be marked by hesitation and avoidance. They may forego applying altogether, rationalizing, I will never secure it, or I am not intelligent enough for such a role. Should they, by some improbable circumstance, apply and be interviewed, their internal belief will subtly color their demeanor. They might speak with diminished confidence, refrain from highlighting their achievements, or even minimize their experience, all because their self-image as a failure is dictating their actions. They are unconsciously enacting the narrative scripted within their mind. Now, contemplate another individual whose self-image is centered on the belief, I am a resourceful problem solver. When confronted with the identical new job opportunity, their behavior will diverge significantly. They will perceive the need for new skills not as an impediment, but as an intriguing challenge. They will actively seek information about the position, research the company, and prepare for the interview by contemplating how their existing skills can be adapted and how they can swiftly master new ones. During the interview, they will articulate with conviction their capacity to confront challenges and learn effectively. Their actions are a direct emanation of their internal blueprint. They are not merely hoping for success, they are actively behaving in ways that render success probable, because their self-image assures them of their problem-solving acumen. The strength or certainty of our self-image also exerts a considerable influence on the consistency and intensity of our behaviors. A weakly held negative self-image might precipitate intermittent moments of doubt and hesitation. For instance, someone who harbors a vague notion that they are socially inept might experience a degree of awkwardness at a gathering but will still engage in conversation. However, if that negative self-image is deeply entrenched, if it forms a core aspect of their self-perception, I am inherently unlikable and awkward, then their behavior will be far more consistent and pronounced. They might actively shun social engagements altogether, or if they attend, they may remain sequestered in a corner, speaking minimally, their body language conveying palpable discomfort. Their actions become a rigid manifestation of their deeply ingrained belief, allowing little room for deviation. The converse holds true for positive self-images. A mild belief that I am generally a decent person might foster polite interactions. but a profoundly ingrained self-image of "I am a kind and generous soul" will manifest inconsistent, proactive acts of benevolence and magnanimity. Such an individual will not merely be polite, they will actively seek opportunities to assist others, offer support, and share their resources. The intensity of their positive actions emanates from the certainty and depth of their positive self-perception. Their behavior is not an occasional occurrence. It is a natural, unceasing outpouring of who they believe themselves to be. This is the extraordinary potency of our internal blueprint. It does not merely influence our thoughts, it dictates our actions. It is the invisible force that shapes our daily choices, our responses to adversity, and our interactions with the world around us. Understanding this connection is the initial stride toward reclaiming control. If our behavior is a direct consequence of our self-image, then by consciously and deliberately altering that self-image, we can fundamentally transform our behavior and, in doing so, revolutionize our lives. The path forward, therefore, lies in comprehending how this potent internal picture is initially formed and how we can commence to reshape it into something that empowers our highest potential. 3. The role of thoughts in shaping identity. We often encounter the adage, "You become what you think about." It resonates as a deceptively simple aphorism, perhaps akin to a comforting fable. Yet, as we embark on an exploration into the intricate machinations of our minds, we discover this is not merely a pleasant notion, but a fundamental verity of our very construction. Our persistent thoughts act as the invisible architect of our existence, perpetually drafting the blueprints of our being and our lived experiences. They subtly direct our subconscious, issuing silent directives that sculpt our actions, solidify our convictions, and ultimately render the portrait of our self-perception. This is the very crux of our inquiry, the profound realization that the internal realm of our cognitions is the primordial force shaping the external reality we inhabit. Consider it thus: our self-image is not an innate endowment, like the hue of our irises or the contour of our nose. It is not a static, immutable facet of our personhood. Rather, it is a dynamic creation, meticulously constructed moment by moment, thought by thought. Every single contemplation that traverses our mental landscape, whether it surfaces with conscious awareness or flits by as a fleeting sentiment, contributes a minuscule tessera to the grand mosaic of our identity. Each thought is a solitary brick. Some are robust and perfectly formed, lending strength and aesthetic appeal. Others may be fractured or misshapen, compromising the integrity of the structure. Over the passage of time, as brick is laid upon brick, these thoughts construct the entire edifice of our self-image. The true potency of our thoughts lies in their frequency. A thought that momentarily graces our consciousness and is swiftly dismissed exerts negligible influence. However, a thought that we entertain repeatedly, even if it lacks veracity or is something we find disagreeable, can begin to embed itself. It is akin to nurturing a nascent seed. Consistent daily hydration will foster its growth. A solitary watering, however, may yield little result. When we reiterate negative self-assessments, perhaps deeming ourselves insufficiently intelligent, incapable, or unworthy, these thoughts commence to etch themselves as deeply grooved pathways within our minds. Our subconscious, perpetually attentive, begins to assimilate these recurring thoughts as indisputable facts. This is the genesis of negative self-talk morphing into a self-fulfilling prophecy. We come to assent to the untruths we whisper to ourselves, and consequently we behave in ways that validate those very falsehoods. This engenders a formidable feedback loop, a cyclical entanglement that can prove arduous to disrupt. Its mechanism is thus: our thoughts inform our emotional states. If you contemplate, "I am destined to falter in this presentation," you are likely to experience trepidation and unease. These emotions, in turn, influence your deportment. Gripped by nervousness, you may falter in your articulation, avert your gaze, or lose your train of thought. Subsequently, post-presentation, you might reflect, "See? I foretold my failure." This outcome, failure or subpar performance, becomes the evidence that corroborates your initial negative presupposition. you are ensnared in a downward spiral. Yet, this same cycle operates with equal efficacy in the inverse direction. Envision commencing with the thought, "I am well prepared and possess valuable insights to impart." This contemplation may foster a sense of serene assurance. That assurance, in turn, empowers you to stand with poise, articulate with clarity, and engage with your audience. Afterward, you might muse, "That transpired exceptionally well. I performed admirably." This positive experience then reinforces your initial optimistic conviction, increasing the likelihood of embracing positive affirmations in the future. This is a virtuous cycle, a potent ascent. Our subconscious mind assumes a pivotal role in this intricate process. Conceive of it as an expansive, fertile garden. Whatever seeds you sow within that garden, that is what will flourish. Our conscious thoughts are the seeds we plant. If we sow seeds of doubt, apprehension, and inadequacy, our subconscious mind will nurture them, and they will mature into the flora that constitutes our reality. Conversely, if we consciously elect to plant seeds of confidence, competence, and self-worth, our subconscious mind will tend to those, and they will blossom into a life replete with accomplishment and fulfillment. The subconscious mind does not arbitrate these thoughts, it simply assimilates them and endeavors to actualize them. This underscores the paramount importance of vigilance concerning the thoughts we permit to take root. The frequency and intensity of a thought are of paramount significance, functioning akin to the sculptor's chisel. A solitary tap may effect little change. However, numerous strikes, applied with deliberate force, can transmute a rough block of stone into an exquisite sculpture. When a thought is recurrently contemplated, or when it is imbued with a potent emotional charge perhaps linked to a profound fear or an ardent desire, it possesses a greater propensity to imprint itself upon our self-image. These potent, recurring thoughts evolve into the dominant narratives we espouse. They are the ones our subconscious mind seizes upon, weaving them into the very fabric of our identity. The crucial factor is not merely the occurrence of a thought, but the depth of its penetration and the frequency of its revisit. The psychological mechanisms that facilitate the translation of our thoughts into tangible actions are profoundly intriguing. When we contemplate performing an action, our brain initiates the preparatory neural pathways for that endeavor. If you vividly envision yourself hoisting a substantial weight, the neural circuits associated with that physical act begin to activate. This is why athletes often visualize their performance prior to competition. Their minds are rehearsing the actions, thereby enhancing their likelihood of execution when the opportune moment arrives. Similarly, if your prevailing thoughts gravitate towards shyness, your brain begins to prime you for diffident behaviors, perhaps tensing your shoulders, evading eye contact, or modulating your voice to a softer tone. These somatic and behavioral responses are not arbitrary, they are the outward manifestations of your internal cognitive patterns. Your physique and your actions become the corporeal embodiment of your mental blueprint. Beyond mere reiteration, the intrinsic qualities of a thought that render it potent in shaping our identity are deeply personal. A thought imbued with profound emotion, whether it stems from a moment of acute shame or an effervescent surge of joy, will leave a more indelible impression than a neutral contemplation. If a thought feels exceptionally pertinent to our lived experiences, if it appears to illuminate a significant aspect of our circumstances, it will also exert a more considerable influence. For instance, if you were consistently informed during childhood that you lacked creativity, and subsequently your attempt at drawing yields an imperfect result, that experience might be perceived as compelling evidence of your creative deficit. This perceived veracity, even if predicated on a misapprehension or a circumscribed perspective, renders the thought exceptionally tenacious and influential. In molding your identity as someone devoid of creative capacity, it is truly remarkable how swiftly this metamorphosis can transpire. I recall observing an individual, whom we shall refer to as Clara, who had consistently perceived herself as profoundly introverted and ill at ease in social engagements. She harbored the conviction that she was inherently inept at forging connections with others. One day, she attended a workshop where the facilitator encouraged participants to articulate a new self-description, focusing on qualities they aspired to embody. Clara, with a hesitant hand, inscribed, I am a warm, engaging individual who derives pleasure from connecting with others and sharing my perspectives. She recited this declaration to herself multiple times daily, even when it felt entirely incongruous with her perceived reality. Within a matter of weeks, something extraordinary began to unfold. Her companions noted her increased propensity to initiate conversations. In her professional sphere, she found herself contributing to meetings with an unprecedented ease. She began to apprehend herself differently, and consequently, she commenced to entertain novel thoughts regarding her social aptitudes. Her comportment underwent a transformation, and this external shift, in turn, reinforced her nascent self-perception. It was as if her very personality underwent a visible alteration, all because she consciously resolved to nourish her mind with a novel, more affirmative self-image, and subsequently, consistently reinforced it. This perpetual flux of thoughts, particularly those that have become deeply entrenched over time, forms the bedrock of our self-image. It is the internal tableau we hold of ourselves. When this tableau is indistinct or distorted, our actions and experiences in the world mirror this lack of clarity. However, upon comprehending that our thoughts are the very constituent elements of this identity, we acquire immense agency. We can begin to select which bricks to lay, which patterns to reinforce, and which architects to heed. The understanding that our thoughts are the fundamental building blocks of our identity represents a critical initial step. Nevertheless, the pertinent question persists: how do these thoughts, particularly those forged during our formative years and often operating below the threshold of conscious awareness, become so profoundly embedded? The subsequent section will delve into the genesis of these foundational thoughts and the often unseen influences that sculpt our nascent self-image. 4. Historical insights on self-image. The ancient wisdom of humanity has long recognized a profound truth. Our sense of self and the tapestry of our experiences are inextricably woven from the threads of our beliefs about who we are. Millennia before the advent of modern psychology, sagacious minds and enduring traditions perceive that our inner landscape profoundly colors the canvas of our external world. They intuitively grasp that our self-perception is not a passive mirror reflecting reality, but an active, potent force that sculpts it. Consider the titans of ancient Greece. Philosophers such as Epictetus, a man who transcended the bonds of slavery to become a revered sage, articulated this connection with stark clarity. Though he spoke not of self-image in contemporary parlance, he keenly understood its dominion. His immoral words resonate. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Reflect on this profound insight. It is not the event itself that breeds disquiet, but the interpretation we overlay upon it. If we perceive ourselves as frail when confronted by adversity, we will indeed feel unsettled and likely falter. Conversely, if we embrace a vision of our own strength, we may confront that same challenge with unyielding courage. This is the very crucible in which our internal self-portrait dictates our engagement with the world. Then turn your gaze to the luminous insights of Eastern philosophies. In the Buddhist canon, the Dhammapada, a compendium of the Buddha's teachings, offers a striking parallel. What we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday, and our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. This is not mere prophecy, it is a testament to the perpetual act of self-creation. Our present circumstances, our triumphs, our tribulations, all are the fruit born from the seeds of our past contemplations. And the thoughts that occupy us now, the internal image we nurture, are the master architects of what the morrow shall bring. This venerable wisdom speaks directly to the central tenet of this work. We are, in essence, what we think. Our self-image, the mental blueprint we carry, is the fertile soil wherein the seeds of our future destiny are sown. Even the sacred texts of the West echo this fundamental verity. In the book of Proverbs, we encounter the potent declaration, "For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he." This deceptively simple yet profoundly impactful statement suggests that our deepest, most heartfelt convictions about ourselves transcend fleeting notions, becoming foundational truths that define our very essence. If, from the core of our being, we harbor the belief that success is beyond our reach, that conviction transmutes into our lived reality. Our actions will invariably conspire to confirm it, our interpretations will bend to its narrative, and we will, in essence, become that self-perceived individual of limited capacity. Conversely, if our heart embraces the conviction of our worthiness, our capability, and our inherent deservingness of good fortune, our deeds and our experiences will gradually, inexorably, align with that inner certainty. This ancient counsel stands as a powerful testament to the enduring recognition of the self-image's pervasive influence. These venerable perspectives, though articulated through diverse linguistic and cultural lenses, converge upon a singular, fundamental human truth. Our internal realm wields immense power over our external existence. They understood that our thoughts, our beliefs, and our most profound self-perceptions are not passive passengers on life's journey, but active pilots charting a course toward specific horizons. They discern that the internal picture we hold of ourselves, our mental effigy, serves as the guiding compass, the unseen hand that shapes our conduct, our choices, and ultimately the narrative of our lives. This is not a novel revelation. It is a timeless understanding that has reverberated through the ages, awaiting our full comprehension of its far-reaching implications. As the discipline of psychology began to crystallize into a formal pursuit, its pioneering figures commenced an exploration of these internal landscapes with a burgeoning scientific rigor. They observed the intricate mechanisms of the human mind, noting the profound impact of our inner states on our outward behavior and our overall sense of well-being. While they may not have employed the precise term self-image in its current iteration, their foundational work laid indispensable groundwork for its eventual conceptualization. Consider the groundbreaking contributions of William James, often hailed as the progenitor of American psychology. He eloquently described the stream of consciousness, the ceaseless flux of thoughts, emotions, and sensations that constitute our mental existence. Furthermore, he delved into the concept of the self, positing it not as a monolithic entity but as a complex construct comprising multifaceted dimensions: our material self, our social self, and our spiritual self. This notion of a multifaceted self subtly hinted at the internal representations we hold regarding our identity, the very building blocks of a self-image. His work underscored that our sense of self is not a static monument, but a dynamic experience, perpetually shaped and reshaped. Even early psychoanalytic theories, which often plumbed the depths of the unconscious, indirectly acknowledged the potency of internal representations. While their focus lay on deeper, concealed drives and conflicts, the manner in which individuals interpreted and processed these elements nonetheless exerted a significant influence on their conscious behavior and their perceptions of themselves and others. The internal narrative a person constructed, even if unconsciously, played a pivotal role in their psychological architecture. However, it was in the mid-20th century that the concept of self-image truly began to gain substantial momentum, forging a direct link to observable outcomes. Dr. Maxwell Maltz, a pioneering plastic surgeon, made a remarkable discovery through his clinical practice. He observed that many of his patients, even after undergoing successful physical transformations that enhanced their appearance or corrected deformities, frequently remained unhappy or struggled to integrate into their altered reality. They might continue to feel awkward, reticent, or fundamentally inadequate. The underlying reason? Their internal depiction of themselves had remained unaltered. They continued to perceive themselves as the individuals they were prior to the surgical intervention, complete with their perceived flaws and ingrained insecurities. Dr. Maltz posited that the human psyche possesses an inherent image of oneself, a kind of mental schematic. This self-image functions akin to a thermostat, diligently working to align our experiences with our internal perception. Should our self-image be that of someone inherently insufficient, then regardless of external accomplishments, our inner thermostat will endeavor to recalibrate our experiences to that perceived level. Conversely, a robust, affirmative self-image tends to attract and engender experiences that resonate with that positive vision. This represented a pivotal juncture, bridging the ancient wisdom concerning the power of thought with a tangible, observable phenomenon possessing profound real-world implications. Dr. Maltz's work provided a concrete nexus between our internal perception and our external reality, bestowing a name upon this potent internal construct, the self-image. This understanding of the self-image as a catalyst for transformation was not confined to Dr. Maltz's surgical theater. Early observations across diverse fields began to illuminate how shifts in an individual's internal perception could precipitate dramatic metamorphoses in their behavior, their character, and the overarching trajectory of their lives. It transcended mere positive affirmations. It involved a fundamental alteration of the mental picture one held of oneself. Dr. Maltz's patients offered compelling, albeit sometimes poignant, evidence of this phenomenon. An individual who had consistently viewed themselves as unattractive, even after surgical enhancements to their physical appeal, might persist in exhibiting shy behaviors, evading social interactions, and feeling undeserving of attention. Their external form had undergone a metamorphosis, but their internal self-image remained tethered to the past. Consequently, their conduct, their emotional states, and their life experiences continued to mirror that antiquated internal blueprint. Conversely, those who possessed a strong, positive self-image, even preceding significant external alterations, often found themselves naturally embracing their changed appearance, engaging with the world with newfound confidence, and experiencing a heightened sense of joy. Their internal compass was already calibrated for success and well-being. This observation aligns seamlessly with the core premise of this book. Our self-image serves as the mental blueprint that guides our actions and defines our perceived boundaries. If you envision yourself as incapable of acquiring a new skill, you will likely eschew the attempt, or if you do endeavor, you will readily abandon it. Your actions will be dictated by that internal conviction. However, if you perceive yourself as an adept learner, someone capable of confronting new challenges, you will approach the situation with curiosity and unwavering perseverance. You will be more inclined to seek out resources, engage in diligent practice, and ultimately achieve success. The self-image operates as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Early iterations of self-help movements and therapeutic modalities also began to recognize this dynamic. Although the terminology might have varied, some advocating positive thinking, others emphasizing belief systems, the underlying principle remained consistent. Altering an individual's self-perception was paramount to unlocking their latent potential. Anecdotal evidence from these nascent efforts demonstrated that when individuals were encouraged to cultivate a more positive and capable outlook of themselves, their behavior frequently underwent a profound transformation. They became more gregarious, more ambitious, and more resilient in the face of adversity. The critical insight here transcends a generalized sense of optimism. It resides in the specific, often subconscious, image we hold of our identity. Do we see ourselves as inherently worthy of love and respect? Do we perceive ourselves as capable of surmounting obstacles? Do we view ourselves as individuals destined to achieve our aspirations? The answers to these questions, embedded within our self-image, possess immense power. They influence our confidence, our motivation, and our willingness to embrace risk. A positive self-image does not merely engender pleasant feelings, it actively propels us to take action, to venture beyond our comfort zones, and to pursue our deepest desires. It bestows the internal sanction and the belief structure essential for growth and achievement. Looking through the annals of history, we discern a persistent thread, the profound acknowledgement that our internal perception of ourselves is a fundamental force in shaping the trajectory of our lives. From the ancient philosophers contemplating the essence of existence to the early psychologists dissecting the intricacies of the human mind, and finally to pioneers like Dr. Maltz who witnessed its tangible repercussions, the notion that we become what we think has been a recurring motif. This historical perspective transcends mere academic inquiry. It furnishes a robust foundation for comprehending the power inherent in the self-image. It demonstrates that this concept is not a transient fad, but a deeply ingrained truth about human nature. Having traversed these historical currents, we are now better equipped to delve into the mechanisms by which this self-image is forged and, more crucially, how we can actively and effectively reshape it for profound personal transformation. The journey from ancient wisdom to contemporary understanding reveals that the power to alter our lives resides within the very picture we hold of ourselves. Chapter 2. Transforming your self-image. 1. Improving self-image with visualization. Our minds are extraordinary engines, capable of sculpting the very fabric of our existence. Among the most potent methods for harnessing this innate power is a practice known as visualization. Consider it a profound mental rehearsal, a deliberate exercise in embodying the person you aspire to be. Long before that, reality manifests in the corporeal realm. It is akin to an artist conceiving a masterpiece in the ethereal landscape of dreams, only to then breathe life into it upon the waiting canvas. We, too, possess this remarkable capacity to paint our lives into being. Visualization transcends mere passive indulgence in pleasant reveries. It is a disciplined, intentional endeavor. When you conjure an image with profound clarity, your brain often finds it indistinguishable from lived experience. This may strike one as peculiar, yet it is precisely the bedrock upon which visualization's efficacy is built. By vividly imagining yourself as possessed of confidence, competence, and success, you are, in essence, cultivating genuine emotional and neurological states within your being. This process subtly, yet powerfully, reshapes your self-perception, and as we understand, your self-image serves as the fundamental blueprint for your life's trajectory. For visualization to truly serve as a catalyst for enhancing your self-image, it must transcend the ephemeral flicker of a passing thought. It demands meticulous detail, an immersive engagement of all your senses, and a profound infusion of authentic feeling. Begin by seeking a sanctuary of quietude, a space where your concentration remains unmolested. Inhale deeply, then exhale slowly, allowing a wave of relaxation to wash over you. In this state of cultivated calm, your mind becomes more receptive, more pliant, making the construction of a robust mental tableau considerably more accessible. Now, immerse yourself in the persona you yearn to inhabit. What is your outward appearance? How do you carry yourself? What attire adorns you? But do not halt your exploration there. What do you perceive with your ears? Perhaps it is the resonant cadence of applause, the affirming whispers of a trusted confidant, or the quiet hum of profound contentment. What do you perceive with your olfactory senses? It might be the invigorating scent of achievement, the comforting aroma of a cherished meal earned through effort, or the crisp, clean air of a destination long yearned for. And what do you perceive through touch? This dimension is of paramount significance. Feel the gentle caress of sunlight upon your skin, the firm reassurance of a handshake, the plush embrace of a favorite armchair, or the silken glide of a newly attained success. Above all, what do you feel in the deepest recesses of your being? If your visualization centers on embodying a charismatic order, do not merely observe yourself upon a stage. Experience the invigorating surge of unshakable confidence, the exhilarating connection forged with your assembled listeners, the profound sense of fulfillment that accompanies the articulation of your message. If your vision is that of a celebrated artist, feel the unadulterated joy of creation, the swelling pride in your completed oeuvre, the resonant echo of purpose. This visceral emotional connection is the very alchemy that imbues your mind with the essence of your transformed self-image. As you engage in this practice, speak to yourself in the present tense, as if the envisioned scenario is unfolding in this very instant. Eschew the tentative "I will be confident" for the declarative "I am confident." Renounce "I want to be successful" in favor of the resonant affirmation, "I'm successful." This linguistic precision signals to your subconscious mind that this is not a future aspiration, but your present reality. It is a potent mechanism for initiating the profound recalibration of your internal programming. It is entirely natural to encounter a degree of resistance when you first embark upon the practice of visualization. Doubts may surface, whispering, "This is not real," or "I am merely deceiving myself." This phenomenon is particularly pronounced when your current life circumstances stand in stark contrast to the envisioned future. These hesitations often represent the residual echoes of your former, limiting self-image, clinging tenaciously to its established dominion. It is akin to shedding an ingrained habit, a task that invariably demands sustained effort. Recall our previous discourse. Your self-image is not an immutable edifice, but a malleable mental blueprint ripe for refinement. When doubt arises, acknowledge its presence without succumbing to its influence. Perceive it as the nascent programming encountering friction with the established order. The very manifestation of this resistance signifies that you are actively challenging your ingrained limitations. Persevere in your visualization. Continue to cultivate those nascent emotions. With each dedicated practice, you are fortifying new neural pathways within your brain. Initially, it may feel somewhat contrived, much like the nascent stages of learning to ride a bicycle. There may be wobbles, perhaps even a fall, but with persistent engagement, the experience will progressively metamorphose into something more natural, more palpable. The veritable key to unlocking visualization's transformative potential resides in the twin pillars of repetition and unwavering consistency. Just as proficiency in any new skill is honed through diligent practice, so too does visualization deepen its impact with each successive engagement. Endeavor to weave visualization into the very fabric of your daily existence. Perhaps a few moments upon awakening, before the clamor of daily concerns encroaches upon your consciousness. Or, alternatively, as a prelude to slumber, seeding your subconscious with luminous imagery and serene emotions to guide you through the night. Even brief, intensely focused sessions interspersed throughout the day can yield a significant cumulative effect. Consider it in this light. If you possess a written testament to the individual you aspire to become, repeated perusal invariably reinforces its message. Visualization represents the active, experiential distillation of that testament. You are not merely perusing words, you are inhabiting that reality within the theater of your mind. You are feeling its resonance within your heart. You are experiencing it through the full spectrum of your senses. This sustained immersion is the critical factor that firmly etches this new, affirmative self-image onto the deepest strata of your being. It is the mechanism through which you begin to embody your thoughts, not solely within the confines of imagination, but as a tangible manifestation in your lived reality. The emotional dimension of visualization extends far beyond the superficial conjuring of a felicitous scene. It is about the active generation and experiencing of the emotions intrinsically linked to your desired self-image. To merely envision oneself succeeding is akin to passively observing a cinematic narrative. However, when you visualize and simultaneously feel the pride, the elation, the profound satisfaction that accompanies such success, you are engaging your entire being. This emotional resonance is indispensable, for our emotions serve as potent architects of our behavior and our deeply held beliefs. If you can consistently evoke sentiments of confidence and inherent worthiness through the practice of visualization, these feelings will gradually become an intrinsic component of your lived experience. This is the direct conduit through which visualization influences your self-image. It does not merely alter your cognitive understanding of who you are, but fundamentally reshapes your visceral sense of self, and that felt sense forms the very bedrock of your self-perception. When individuals first undertake visualization as a means of self-image enhancement, they frequently encounter predictable psychological barriers. Foremost among these is the pervasive sensation of unworthiness or ingrained doubt, as previously alluded to. This arises when the envisioned future self diverges so dramatically from the current self-perception that the mind instinctively rejects it as unattainable. Another formidable obstacle can be impatience. A premature expectation of immediate results often leads to discouragement when tangible shifts in external circumstances do not materialize promptly. Furthermore, some may struggle with the capacity to generate vivid mental imagery or find their thoughts prone to errant diversions. To surmount these impediments, steadfastly adhere to the foundational principles of self-image retraining. Initially, acknowledge the presence of doubt without succumbing to self-recrimination. Regard it as an indicator that you are actively challenging entrenched patterns. Subsequently, anchor your focus on the process itself rather than solely on the ultimate outcome. Celebrate the very act of visualizing as a progressive stride forward. Moreover, cultivate unwavering persistence. Even if your visualizations feel attenuated or your mind wanders, persist in your practice. Progressively, your aptitude for concentration and the creation of vivid mental landscapes will flourish. Should the vividness prove elusive, consider incorporating tangible aids or engaging with inspiring imagery prior to your visualization sessions. And in instances of impatience, cultivate an understanding that this is a gradual process of neural rewiring. Each visualization session is akin to laying another minuscule brick in the edifice of your new self-image. The transformations may be subtle initially, but they are inexorably accumulating. Place your trust in the inherent efficacy of the process, and remain steadfast in your commitment to yourself. Through the consistent application of this potent mental rehearsal, we initiate the profound imprinting of a novel, more empowering self-image upon our subconscious. Nevertheless, visualization represents but one pathway toward this internal reconstruction. The subsequent, indispensable phase entails the active translation of this transformed internal paradigm into concrete actions and behaviors that authentically mirror our redefined self-perception, thereby ensuring an ever-increasing congruence between our inner landscape and our outward existence. 2. Using affirmations for positive change. Affirmations transcend mere whispered pleasantries. They are potent, deliberate instruments designed to commune directly with the deepest strata of our being, the subconscious mind. Envision your subconscious as an expansive, fertile expanse of earth. For years, perhaps even unawares, you have sown seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation within this terrain. These seeds have burgeoned into the tenacious weeds of a diminished self-regard, suffocating the latent potential for growth and inherent beauty. Affirmations, conversely, are akin to meticulously chosen, potent seeds of an entirely different order. They are distilled, affirmative declarations that, when nurtured with unwavering consistency, possess the capacity to transmute that inner landscape into a sanctuary of fortitude, assurance, and boundless possibility. Through the act of repeating an affirmation, we are, in essence, furnishing our subconscious mind with novel directives. Rather than permitting it to operate on outdated, flawed programming, the insidious internal monologue that whispers inadequacy, intellectual deficit, or incapacity to realize our aspirations, we are actively cultivating a new narrative. This nascent chronicle is anchored in the bedrock of what we aspire to manifest, and the astonishing faculty of our minds lies in their capacity to ultimately transmute our persistent convictions into tangible reality. As Dr. Maltz, a luminary in this domain, posited, the mind, presented with a clear and compelling vision, will labor relentlessly to breathe life into that image. Affirmations serve as the verbal brushstrokes that render that vision palpable. The profound efficacy of affirmations resides in their formulation and the manner in which we engage with them. The most impactful affirmations are articulated in the present indicative tense. Instead of conceding to a future state, such as "I will possess confidence someday," or "I harbor aspirations of achieving success," we decisively declare, "I am confident and I am successful." This may initially feel incongruous, particularly if your present circumstances do not mirror these pronouncements. You might even perceive yourself as perpetuating a falsehood. This is an entirely natural phase of the process, and it is imperative to grasp why this perceived lie constitutes the very genesis of a profound truth. Imagine an artist poised to capture a magnificent panorama. They do not commence by lamenting, "I wish this unblemished canvas bore a mountain." Instead, they grasp their brush, imbue it with pigment, and begin to conjure the mountain, stroke by deliberate stroke. Even if the initial gestures do not immediately resemble a mountain, the artist perseveres, guided by the indelible vision etched within their mind. Similarly, when you engage with affirmations, you assume the mantle of the artist and your mind becomes the canvas. The initial sensation of falsehood is merely the mind's inherent resistance to transformation, its comfort zone being gently challenged. Yet, through persistent repetition, you are laying down those foundational strokes. You are communicating to your subconscious, "This is the reality I am meticulously constructing." Enduring thought and unwavering belief will inevitably crystallize into reality, even if it initially feels like a phantasm or a fabrication. Your mind will diligently endeavor to bridge the chasm between your pronouncements and your lived experience, thereby recalibrating your perception. and actions to harmonize with the emergent conviction. Thus, how do affirmations specifically penetrate and recalibrate the subconscious mind, the very wellspring of our self-image, rather than merely offering superficial positive reinforcement? The answer lies in the synergistic interplay of repetition and emotional resonance. Our subconscious mind does not process logic with the same analytical rigor as our conscious mind. It operates more akin to an absorbent medium, assimilating that to which it is repeatedly exposed, particularly when such exposures are imbued with a degree of emotional significance. When you articulate "I am worthy" with a genuine undercurrent of hope, or even a resolute determination to embrace that sentiment, you are transmitting a potent signal. Over time, as this practice is sustained, the neural pathways within your brain begin to adapt. They progressively favor the new belief. It is analogous to forging a new passage through an impenetrable forest. The initial traversal is arduous, but with each subsequent journey, the path becomes clearer and more accessible. Affirmations, through their consistent invocation, facilitate the excavation of these novel, positive neural pathways, rendering a positive self-image the default setting rather than an arduous endeavor. Superficial positive thinking often remains at the periphery. It is akin to affixing a decorative decal to a fractured facade. Affirmations delve deeper, addressing the foundational structure and reinforcing it with a more robust and resilient material. What, then, are the indispensable constituents of an effective affirmation? Considering the tenets of present tense, emotional resonance, and the transcendence of initial skepticism? Foremost, as previously expounded, present tense is paramount. I am, I possess, I embody. Secondly, positivity is indispensable. Eschew negative constructions such as "I am not afraid." Instead, reframe them as "I am courageous" or "I am composed and resolute." The subconscious mind can encounter difficulties in processing negations. Thus, it is crucial to concentrate on that which you desire to cultivate. Thirdly, specificity can be advantageous, yet brevity is key. Opt for clarity over an expansive, meandering statement. "I am a gifted artist, and my creativity flows unimpeded" is more potent than an exhaustive description of all the artistic endeavors you yearn to undertake. Fourthly, emotional resonance is vital. Endeavor to infuse your affirmations with genuine feeling. When you declare "I am loved," attempt to recall a moment of profound affection, or vividly imagine that sensation in the present. Even if it is a faint flicker, you are assisting your subconscious in forging a connection with that emotion. Finally, and perhaps most critically, is consistency. This is the crucible in which skepticism is overcome. It is not requisite to embrace an affirmation with absolute conviction from the outset. The objective is to repeat it with such frequency that the subconscious mind gradually assimilates it as an irrefutable fact. Consider it akin to planting a seed. A tree does not materialize overnight. It requires watering, sunlight, and diligent care. The affirmation is the seed, and your unwavering repetition is the tending. When you authentically embrace affirmations, you will discern that they extend beyond mere cognitive recalibration. They serve as a powerful catalyst for action. As you consistently affirm, "I am capable and confident," you begin to perceive yourself through a new lens. This emergent perception inherently shapes your comportment. You may find yourself volunteering for a demanding project at work, articulating your perspectives more assertively in meetings, or embarking on a new pursuit that you once deemed beyond your purview. These actions, in turn, furnish novel experiences that fortify your transformed self-image. You validate, through your own agency, the burgeoning truth of your affirmation. This engenders a virtuous feedback loop. The affirmation inspires confident action, and confident action validates the affirmation, thereby solidifying the new self-image with greater tenacity. It is an exquisite cycle of growth, wherein your internal belief system actively sculpts your external reality and is subsequently reinforced by it. To harness the transformative power of affirmations, consistency transcends mere suggestion. It is an absolute imperative. Integrate them into your daily regimen with the same naturalness as brushing your teeth. Many individuals discover profound benefit in reciting their affirmations first thing upon awakening. This establishes a positive trajectory for the entire day, programming your mind with your desired reality before the external world has an opportunity to impose its own constraints. Another potent juncture is immediately preceding slumber. As your conscious mind gradually recedes, your subconscious becomes more amenable to suggestion. Repeating your affirmations then allows them to work their influence throughout the night. They can also be employed during moments of repose while commuting, during a leisurely stroll, or even during brief interludes at work. The key is frequency. The more often you expose your subconscious mind to these affirmative statements, the more swiftly they will take root and commence the profound reshaping of your self-perception. They are not an incantation to be cast once and then dismissed, but rather a continuous practice of nurturing your inner garden, ensuring that the seeds of positivity are afforded the optimal conditions to flourish. While affirmations provide the verbal scaffolding for our desired self, the true consolidation of this new identity often necessitates a more profound, immersive experience. The conscious mind can readily apprehend affirmations, but the subconscious truly assimilates them when it can perceive and feel them as tangible reality. This leads us to the subsequent potent technique, the art of visualization, wherein we meticulously render our future self into vivid existence. 3. Self-perception and personal transformation. The most profound shifts in our lives rarely originate from external alterations: a new career, a different domicile, or a fresh partnership. Instead, they blossom from a deeper wellspring within the hushed confines of our own consciousness. They commence with a subtle yet seismic recalibration of our self-regard. This is the very crucible of self-perception, the inexorable engine that propels personal metamorphosis. Envision it thus: your self-image functions as the operating system for your psyche. It is the foundational program orchestrating every other process. Should that system be riddled with defects, perpetually whispering inadequacy or decreeing inevitable failure, then every endeavor, every thought, will be refracted through that corrupted lens. You will encounter malfunctions, glitches, and constraints that appear insurmountable. Yet, when you install a new, upgraded operating system, one that recognizes your inherent capability, your intrinsic worth, and your boundless potential, everything transforms. Your actions gain fluidity, your responses become imbued with positivity, and your capacity for growth and achievement unfurls without limit. This concept, though deceptively simple, wields immense power. It lies in grasping that the manner in which we observe ourselves exerts a direct and potent influence on the individuals we become. It echoes a captivating tenet within the scientific realm, where the very act of observation can subtly alter the behavior of the observed. In our own case, when we deliberately choose to regard ourselves through a different prism, to perceive ourselves as more competent, more assured, or more resilient, we begin to embody that nascent vision. This is not a transient whim. It is a sustained internal recalibration. It is akin to flipping an internal switch. Abruptly, you find yourself naturally gravitating toward different thoughts, the very kind that would emanate from a person of greater self-possession. And as these divergent thoughts take root, your behavior follows suit with an organic inevitability. You begin to conduct yourself in ways that align with this newly forged self-concept. This cascading evolution from observation to contemplation, to action, and ultimately to a transformed persona unfolds in real time. It is not about passively awaiting life's alterations. It is about actively reshaping yourself from within, and then witnessing your external reality harmoniously align. Consider the watershed moment when an individual truly begins to perceive themselves differently. This marks the critical inflection point. It transcends a fleeting mental flicker. It is a deep, enduring internal realignment. For an extended period, perhaps, they have viewed themselves as timid, deficient, or fundamentally unsuited for particular pursuits. They may have carried the indelible imprints of childhood, the reverberations of external criticism, or simply a pervasive sense of insufficiency. These past experiences, like invisible shackles, have molded their self-image into one of inherent limitation. But then, a subtle shift occurs. They commence a conscious interrogation of those ingrained perceptions. They begin to envision themselves possessing the very qualities they admire in others: poise, fortitude, inventiveness. They start to feel the resonance of embodying that aspirational self. This deliberate endeavor to see oneself anew is the seminal, indispensable step. It is comparable to an artist opting for a fresh palette. The canvas remains the same, but the creative possibilities suddenly expand exponentially. Once the capacity to perceive oneself differently is established, the subsequent, natural progression is to embrace different thoughts. If you commence seeing yourself as a capable architect of solutions, you will invariably begin to approach challenges from a novel perspective. Rather than succumbing to immediate overwhelm, you will instinctively ponder, how might I navigate this? Or what avenues are available to me? These are the contemplations of an individual who trusts in their inherent capacity to devise resolutions. This cognitive shift is not imposed, it flows directly from the newly cultivated self-perception. It is akin to a river discovering a more unimpeded course. The water does not struggle, it simply flows in the direction of least resistance, which is now a channel of empowerment. This, in turn, engenders a divergent personality. The individual who once recoiled from adversity now steps forward with resolve. The one who was reticent and hesitant now articulates with conviction. This is not the product of overnight sorcery, it is the organic unfolding of a fundamentally altered internal blueprint. The nexus between this internal metamorphosis and tangible external outcomes is not arcane, it is profoundly practical. When you consistently nurture a new conviction about yourself, for instance, I am an inventive individual, you will naturally initiate actions that resonate with that conviction. You might begin to write, to sketch, to brainstorm novel concepts, or to approach your work with a more imaginative disposition. These actions, undertaken with regularity, will yield concrete results. Your creative projects will materialize, your professional contributions may become more innovative, and others will begin to recognize you as an inventive entity. This is the process by which your internal conviction manifests in the external realm. It is akin to planting a seed and diligently tending to its growth. The seed of a new self-image, once sown and nourished by consistent thought and action, will blossom into the fruit of a transformed reality. It is the universe responding in kind to the internal blueprint you are now projecting. You might now be inclined to question, doesn't this sound like self-deception? How can I feign an identity I don't possess and expect it to become real? This is a remarkably common and entirely valid apprehension. The nascent stages of consciously altering one's self-image can indeed feel akin to pretending or deceiving oneself. You may strive to perceive yourself as confident, yet your ingrained habits and lingering insecurities persistently resurface. It can feel artificial, like donning garments that do not yet fit comfortably. Nevertheless, this pretending serves as a vital component of the process. It is a deliberate practice, a conscious exertion to act as if the desired self is already a tangible reality. When you engage in this, you are, in essence, rehearsing a new behavior, a novel mode of thought, and a fresh emotional landscape. Your subconscious mind, the custodian of your deeply entrenched beliefs and habitual patterns, learns through repetition and lived experience. By acting as if, you furnish your subconscious with novel experiences. You demonstrate to it, through your actions and your conscious deliberations, that this new mode of being is not only possible but attainable. Let us delve deeper into this. Imagine an individual who ardently desires to become a poised public speaker. They have perpetually experienced trepidation, their voice faltering, their mind drawing a blank. Their self-image is that of a shy, inarticulate person. To undergo transformation, they must first begin to perceive themselves differently. They initiate this by visualizing themselves standing tall, articulating with clarity, and engaging their audience with presence. This is the inaugural stride in recalibrating their self-perception. Subsequently, they must embrace different thoughts. Instead of dwelling on, I am going to falter, they consciously endeavor to contemplate, I possess something of value to impart, or I am capable of forging a connection with these individuals. This is where the act of pretending becomes instrumental. They may need to compel themselves to stand straighter, to maintain eye contact, to modulate their voice to a volume slightly beyond their immediate comfort zone. It might feel like a performance, a deliberate act of role-playing. Yet, with each rehearsal, with each consciously chosen thought and action, they are fundamentally rewiring their neural pathways. They are providing their subconscious mind with new, formative data. The cognitive and emotional processes underpinning this initial pretending are remarkably intricate. Cognitively, you are actively engaging your prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for conscious deliberation, strategic planning, and volitional decision-making. You are consciously overriding antiquated, automatic responses that are deeply embedded within your subconscious. You are deliberately choosing to think and act in a manner that diverges from your ingrained patterns. Emotionally, this can present a significant challenge. You might experience a sense of unease, apprehension, or even a prickle of guilt, particularly if your entrenched self-image is profoundly established. A feeling of imposter syndrome may arise. However, this discomfort often signifies that you are venturing beyond your established boundaries, which is precisely the fertile ground for growth. Each instance you pretend to be confident, even if it feels disingenuous, you are meticulously constructing a small yet significant piece of evidence for your subconscious, affirming that this new mode of existence is indeed achievable. This practice of deceiving oneself or pretending is not an exercise in duplicity, rather, it is a profound act of re-education. It involves deliberately exposing oneself to a new reality, and then assiduously acting in accordance with that novel reality until it becomes your established norm. Consider the analogy of learning to ride a bicycle. In your initial attempts, you likely experienced wobbling, falls, and a pervasive sense of awkwardness. You had to consciously concentrate on maintaining balance, pedaling, and steering. You were not intrinsically a cyclist. You had to act like one until your body and mind acquired the requisite skills. Similarly, when you consciously embody the confident, capable, or creative individual you aspire to be, you are conditioning your mind and body to internalize that identity. The more you practice, the more credible it becomes, both to yourself and to those around you. The initial deception gradually transmutes into a deeply ingrained truth. The underlying mechanism of this transformation is rooted in the brain's inherent plasticity, its remarkable capacity for change and adaptation. Every time you rehearse a new thought or behavior, you fortify the neural connections associated with it. When you repeatedly pretend to be confident, you are literally constructing new neural pathways within your brain that actively support confidence. Eventually, these newly forged pathways become more robust than the original ones linked to insecurity. At this juncture, the behavior no longer feels like an affectation, it feels intrinsically natural. You have genuinely reconfigured your self-perception. The deception has coalesced into your reality because you have diligently labored to effectuate that change. This is the pathway by which we transition from superficial adjustments to profound, ingrained alterations. It is not about donning a superficial mask. It is about allowing a new, more authentic self to emerge and flourish. The transformative power of this internal re-engineering cannot be overstated. When you master the art of self-perception, you are not merely altering your thoughts or your emotions, you are fundamentally reshaping the bedrock upon which your entire personality is constructed. You are assuming the role of the architect of your own evolving identity. This is precisely why personal transformation is not contingent upon acquiring new external circumstances, but rather upon a fundamental re-engineering of our inner landscape. By consciously dictating how we perceive ourselves, we unlock our innate capacity to sculpt who we are. This represents the critical initial phase, the laying of an unshakable foundation. Once this internal work is diligently completed, we are then poised to actively cultivate the specific beliefs that will solidify this new self and illuminate the path toward the life we genuinely desire. The journey of becoming who we envision ourselves to be is, in essence, the ultimate mastery of our own perception. 4. Changing personality through self-image. What we perceive as our personality, that intricate tapestry of thought, emotion, and behavior woven into our daily existence, is not an immutable endowment, a fixed state from which we cannot deviate. Rather, it functions much like a reflection in a mirror, a faithful representation of our deeply held beliefs about ourselves. Should you gaze into this mirror and see a person imbued with confidence and competence, your actions will invariably begin to align with that image. Conversely, if the reflection reveals timidity and uncertainty, your conduct will echo that perception. This is not a charade, an attempt to feign a different self. It is the profound influence of your internal convictions guiding your most authentic expression. Consider your self-image as the architect's blueprint for the edifice of your life. Just as a builder meticulously follows a blueprint to erect a structure, your mind employs your self-image to orchestrate your actions and sculpt your personality. If the blueprint dictates a confined, dimly lit space, that is precisely what the builder will manifest. Analogously, if your self-image whispers that you are insufficient or predestined for failure, your personality will be inexorably shaped by these convictions. You may find yourself becoming reticent, shying away from challenges, or perpetually plagued by self-doubt. These are not inherent character flaws. They are the natural, predictable outgrowths of the blueprint you are diligently following. This revelation may initially strike you as startling. We are accustomed to viewing personality traits such as shyness, boldness, or optimism as intrinsic, unalterable facets of our being. Yet, the truth is far more dynamic. These are but outward manifestations of our internal self-perception. When an individual's self-image undergoes a metamorphosis, their personality often transforms before our very eyes. This is not an act of magic, but a testament to the intricate workings of psychology. How, then, does this profound transformation unfold? It is a beautiful, cascading chain reaction. It commences with a subtle yet significant shift in how you perceive yourself. Envision an individual who has long harbored the conviction of social awkwardness. Their self-image is one of inherent social ineptitude. Then, through deliberate effort and exposure to novel experiences, they begin to perceive themselves through a different lens. Perhaps a single, positive interaction plants the seed of the possibility that they can indeed connect with others. This nascent perception, however faint, initiates a subtle alteration in their internal dialogue. The familiar refrain of "I'm going to make a fool of myself" may begin to yield to a tentative whisper. Perhaps I can actually engage in a pleasant conversation. These nascent thoughts then serve as the precursors to new actions. Because they entertain the possibility of a pleasant conversation, they might actually initiate one. They may offer a more genuine smile, establish eye contact, and listen with heightened attentiveness. When these nascent behaviors yield positive or even neutral outcomes, such as a reciprocal smile or an engaging exchange, they serve to reinforce the evolving self-image. The individual begins to affirm, "See, I can connect with people." This establishes a virtuous cycle. The enhanced self-image begets more assured actions, which in turn fortify the improved self-image. Let us examine specific personality traits and their intrinsic connection to our self-image. Consider the spectrum of confidence versus insecurity. If your self-image is steeped in profound insecurity, you may perceive yourself as perpetually under scrutiny, or as inherently less intelligent or capable than those around you. This can foster a personality characterized by an unwillingness to voice opinions in meetings, an avoidance of new responsibilities, or a relentless pursuit of external validation. You might find yourself quiet, easily flustered, and consumed by the apprehension of others' judgments. Conversely, if your self-image is rooted in an inherent sense of worth and capability, you will naturally project an aura of confidence. You will be more inclined to articulate your ideas, embrace challenges without the paralyzing fear of failure, and receive criticism with grace. Your personality will manifest as more assertive, open, and self-assured. This is not about ostentatious display. It is about a quiet, internal conviction of one's own inherent competence. Now, let us contemplate optimism versus pessimism. An individual burdened by a diminished self-image may view themselves as perpetually unlucky, as someone who consistently misses opportunities, or as one destined to endure hardship. Their personality may then be colored by a pervasive gloom, a tendency to anticipate the worst, and a fragile resilience when adversity strikes. They may be prone to lament, easily discouraged, and struggle to find moments of joy. In stark contrast, an individual who cultivates a positive self-image, believing themselves deserving of good fortune and capable of surmounting obstacles, will naturally gravitate towards optimism. Their personality will radiate a brighter hue, infused with hope and an unyielding resilience. They will rebound from setbacks with greater alacrity, discern opportunities where others perceive only impediments, and approach life with an expansive sense of possibility. Another pertinent example is openness versus defensiveness. If your self-image is constructed upon the foundation of perceived flaws or the conviction that you will be subjected to harsh judgment, you may develop a defensive disposition. You might react with swift anger to constructive feedback, evade the sharing of personal sentiments, or erect formidable barriers to shield yourself. Your interactions may feel guarded and detached. However, if your self-image is one of inherent acceptance and worthiness, you can afford the luxury of openness. You can embrace vulnerability, articulate your genuine thoughts and feelings, and receive feedback with an open mind. Your personality will become more approachable, candid, and capable of forging deeper connections. Finally, let us consider proactiveness versus passivity. When an individual perceives themselves as a victim of external forces, or as one devoid of agency over their own life, their personality is likely to manifest as passive. They await external events, attribute their difficulties to others, and feel powerless to alter their circumstances. Yet, if your self-image is one of inherent capability, of control over your destiny, and of personal responsibility, your personality will be inherently proactive. You will seize initiative, establish clear objectives, and diligently work to manifest the life you aspire to. You see yourself as the navigator, not merely a passenger. It is imperative to grasp that attempting to alter these personality traits without addressing the underlying self-image is akin to attempting to paint over a foundation riddled with rot. The fresh coat of paint may offer a temporary aesthetic improvement, but the decay persists, and eventually, the paint will crack, or the structure will prove unsound. You may endeavor to compel yourself towards greater confidence or a more optimistic demeanor, but if, at a profound level, you still harbor beliefs of insecurity or misfortune, these efforts will inevitably feel artificial, exhausting, and unsustainable. Genuine, enduring transformation in our personality stems solely from the recalibration of the fundamental image we hold of ourselves. This is precisely where the extraordinary power of self-image truly comes to light. It is the unseen engine that propels our personality. When we apprehend this profound connection, we realize that we are not irrevocably bound to the personality we currently exhibit. We possess the inherent capacity to reshape it, not by forcing ourselves into unfamiliar behaviors, but by gently and intentionally altering the mental tableau we hold within. Allow me to recount a narrative to illuminate this concept. I recall working with a woman named Eleanor. Eleanor possessed an extraordinary intellect and a mind of remarkable brilliance, yet she was also plagued by a crippling shyness. In social gatherings, she would recede into the background, her voice seldom heard. In professional settings, she would often conceive of brilliant ideas, but would be too apprehensive to articulate them, only to later hear a similar concept proposed by another. Her self-image was that of a wallflower, an observer of life from the periphery rather than an active participant. She harbored the conviction that others found her uninteresting and that her thoughts lacked merit. This impoverished self-image dictated the contours of her personality: quiet, reserved, and hesitant. Eleanor sought my guidance out of a deep-seated frustration. She felt as though she were being excluded from the richness of life. Her desire was to cultivate a more outgoing, confident, and engaged persona. Our work together focused on her self-image. We delved into the origins of her shyness, exploring past experiences where she might have felt criticized or overlooked. More critically, we embarked on the endeavor of constructing a new self-perception. We emphasized her intelligence, her inherent kindness, and her unique perspective. Through the application of simple affirmations and visualization exercises, we sought to supplant the image of a wallflower with that of an individual who possessed valuable insights to impart, someone capable of forging connections, and someone who inherently deserved to be heard. The transformation was not instantaneous, yet it was undeniably remarkable. As Eleanor began to internalize this nascent self-image, her personality began to evolve. She did not suddenly transform into an extrovert, but she started to voice her thoughts more readily in meetings. She began initiating conversations with colleagues, not out of obligation, but from a place of genuine interest. She discovered that her interactions were met with positive responses, which in turn served to reinforce her burgeoning self-image. Her exchanges became more open and less guarded. She began to smile more frequently, to establish eye contact, and to engage in discussions with an unprecedented ease. Her personality ceased to be defined by timidity and apprehension, but rather by a burgeoning sense of quiet confidence and authentic engagement. Eleanor's metamorphosis was not a matter of acquiring new social stratagems. It was the profound alteration of her internal blueprint, from which her personality naturally flowed, imbued with a newfound empowerment. Another illustrative case is that of Mark, a man who had consistently viewed himself as a victim of circumstance. He had experienced job losses, endured relationship failures, and felt as though life was perpetually presenting him with insurmountable challenges. His personality was characterized by a profound pessimism and a propensity to attribute his difficulties to external factors. He would frequently utter phrases such as, "It's simply not fair," or "What's the point?" He existed in a state of passivity, awaiting positive developments with the deep-seated conviction that they would never materialize. Our work with Mark involved a deliberate effort to shift his self-image from that of a victim to that of a resilient survivor and a capable architect of his own destiny. We focused on his past accomplishments, however modest, and on his inherent strengths. We guided him to recognize that while adverse events might occur, his response to them remained within his purview. Gradually, his internal narrative underwent a profound transformation. He began to perceive himself as an individual capable of extracting lessons from challenges rather than being vanquished by them. This recalibration of his self-image precipitated a significant metamorphosis in his personality. He became notably more proactive. Instead of passively awaiting job opportunities, he actively engaged in networking and pursued skill enhancement. He began to assume responsibility for his relationships, understanding that his own actions played a crucial role in their success or failure. His outlook brightened considerably. While he continued to encounter difficulties, his reaction to them was fundamentally altered. He approached them with a spirit of determination rather than despair. His personality transitioned from one of passive resignation to one of active engagement and optimistic resilience. Mark was not a different individual. He remained the same person, but with an entirely redefined internal paradigm guiding his actions and his outlook. These examples underscore a critical principle. Genuine personality change is not an exercise in pretense. It is the profound transformation of the core belief system that shapes our very essence. If you believe yourself to be shy, your actions will reflect that belief. If you believe yourself to be capable, your actions will align with that conviction. The external world often mirrors what we project, and when our self-image is diminished, the feedback we receive can serve to reinforce those negative convictions. This is precisely why attempts to alter personality without addressing self-image frequently falter. You cannot sustain an outward display of confidence if, at your core, you believe yourself to be inadequate. The true power resides in comprehending that your personality is a vibrant, dynamic expression of your self-image. It is not an unyielding constraint, but rather a malleable canvas. By consciously and consistently cultivating your self-image, you are not merely altering your perception of yourself, you are actively reshaping the very fabric of your personality. You are, in essence, becoming the individual you have always possessed the potential to be, simply by modifying the internal portrait you hold. Much like a sculptor meticulously chips away at stone to reveal the latent form within, we too can consciously refine our personality by understanding and transforming the underlying self-image. But how does one embark upon this transformative sculpting process? The subsequent section will delve into the practical instruments and methodologies, for identifying and dismantling the detrimental self-images that hold us captive, thereby paving the way for the deliberate construction of a new, empowering internal blueprint. Conclusion: we have traversed the inner continents of the mind, unearthing a primal verity that has resonated through the epochs, the unassailable dominion of our deepest convictions about ourselves. This discourse has advanced the proposition that our self-conception is not merely a faint echo of our perceived likeness, but the very crucible from which our actions are forged, the loom upon which our thoughts are woven, and ultimately, the architect of the world we inhabit. You have embarked upon the nascent, courageous voyage by engaging with this concept, and in so doing, have begun to apprehend the genesis of your inherent constraints and the boundless potential for metamorphosis that lies dormant within. You have witnessed how the residue of past encounters, the sting of criticism, and the imposition of labels can coalesce into a self-portrait that may impede progress, engendering timidity, apprehension, and the conviction that monumental achievements lie beyond reach. Yet, you have also discerned that this portrait is not immutable. The profound revelation, first strikingly illuminated by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, a plastic surgeon who observed that altering a patient's physiognomy did not invariably recalibrate their self-perception, unveils a pivotal truth: our internal appraisal of ourselves wields a far greater potency than our external visage. He observed that individuals frequently continued to perceive themselves as unattractive or defective even subsequent to physical ameliorations. This phenomenon arises because our self-image functions as a mental schematic, an indelibly imprinted daguerreotype of our perceived identity. This blueprint dictates our every volition, calibrating the thermostat of our existence. Should this thermostat be preset to failure, we shall, with unconscious precision, navigate ourselves towards outcomes that corroborate this belief, even if our conscious desires lean towards triumph. Conversely, an affirmative self-image cultivates self-assurance, impelling us to engage with volition and embrace emergent prospects. This mental daguerreotype is not static. It is an animated, vital entity that we possess the agency to transform. What we genuinely hold to be true about ourselves, even if it seems ephemeral, is what we shall, in time, actualize. This comprehension bestows upon you the mantle of the prime constructor of your own reality. The methodologies we have explored, the focused contemplation, the vivid mental imagery, the unwavering assertion, are not mere intellectual exercises. They are the instruments by which you shall re-render that internal daguerreotype, the means by which you shall update that mental schematic. When you cultivate the practice of envisioning yourself as self-possessed, competent, and deserving of prosperity, you are not merely perpetrating a falsehood. You are deliberately and assiduously furnishing your subconscious with a novel narrative. Contemplate the artist, akin to Van Gogh, who first conceived of a world ablaze with color upon his canvas. It did not manifest in its entirety from the outset. He rendered it, brushstroke by brushstroke, conviction by conviction, until the dream transmuted into his lived experience. Similarly, as you commence to read and believe a new depiction of yourself, one that harmonizes with your loftiest aspirations, you are engaged in the process of re-encoding your subconscious. What today feels like a conjured state can, through persistent application, evolve into the irrefutable verity of your morrow. This metamorphosis does not confine its influence to a solitary facet of your existence. It precipitates a cascading effect, permeating your interpersonal connections, your professional trajectory, your physical vitality, and your overarching sense of well-being. The odyssey of refining your self-image is an ongoing commitment, a perpetual dedication to nurturing the most significant cultivation you shall ever undertake, the garden of your mind. The limitations you once perceived were frequently self-imposed, germinating from an antiquated or erroneous self-appraisal. Now, you stand poised at the precipice of a new paradigm. You are no longer a passive recipient of ambient circumstances, but an active progenitor of your life, guided by a consciously selected and empowering self-perception. Recapitulate the simple yet profound axiom: become what you think. This is your guiding star. Adhere to its luminescence, and continue to tend to your internal looking-glass, for within the reflection of your mind, your most magnificent reality awaits. Proceed, then, and evolve into the resplendent being you were eternally destined to embody.